You've talked about toughness. Every year there's a prove it moment. There's a
Right.
Contender, pretend, all that stuff. Where is this team at mentally to handle coming out of it the way you've come out of it many times in the past?
Yeah, I think we're going to find out a little bit more about ourselves. I've really enjoyed this team, and I think one of the things, even last Saturday, our kids, how they play, how they just keep playing, responding. I've been really proud of them. There's been never a wavering moment that I've watched this group surrender. And, I thought we had a great week, went back to work. And, there's a lot of little things, again, a lot of guys in some first-time moments where now they got to be the leader and they've got to be able to lead through this journey a little bit. But, the response, at least so far, has been really rewarding to watch. And, first of all, you got a great opponent that you got to play, let alone, us taking care of ourselves and making sure, man, some of those small things that have not allowed us to win the football games the last couple of weeks, we fix and go back to work. But I think our kids have been relentless in that process. So it's been really, honestly, from my end, it's been a joy to watch these guys work.
And you mentioned the opponent. They strike me as maybe as complete a team in all three phases that you faced. How would you describe that? I mean, they've got a kicker that hits game winners across the board.
Yeah, I think you hit the word right. They're a really great team. And obviously, I think, I've talked about Kalani before, my respect for him. Man, if my own son could play for anybody in college football, I would want my son to play for him. I mean, that's how much I think of him and how he leads a football program and a team. And you see it. I mean, they play for each other. They play really great complementary football, and they play great team football. And so all the things that when we've been our best and when we're at our best, there's some similarities in terms of how we want to play the game. But so much respect for them. And, across the board, they're playing really good football right now.
Matt, in what ways did you feel like this bye week was most productive for you guys, and do you have any updates on the injured players?
Yeah, I think probably, hopefully, a little bit of that is, getting a little bit healthier. Obviously, we lost Dom early, at Colorado. I think his ability to hopefully be back, I think we'll see a little bit more as the week goes this week, but, was at least out of practice today and find out exactly how much, his availability will be to us this week. Kyle trending up, which, I think for all of us is obviously a great reward for our football team to have Kyle back. We know he's been a huge impact for our football team. Carson Hansen doing a lot better, back to full strength. We expect him to play ready to go. And then I don't know who else am I missing right now that's at least in that question mark. Anybody else that you guys would ask? Yeah, Kaijan, certainly on the practice field, I think will be, available to us, certainly back ready to go, and hopefully he can be a great asset to us as well. Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we'll figure that out. I would not say he's back to 100%, but I think, at least back on the practice field. But I do feel like Kyle is in a really good spot. My expectation is Kyle will play.
And what stands out to you most when watching this BYU offense on film and their quarterback?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the physicality across the board from all 11 players. It starts with the toughness of their quarterback. I love their running back, tough, physical football player. And then, man, you look at those 5 offensive linemen, man, those guys are really talented players, guys that played a lot of football. So I think when you start with this BYU team, you talk about physicality and their ability to run the football, and then on top of that, they've got playmakers on the perimeter. You see it in their special teams game. You see it offensively. All those guys are doing great things in all phases of the game. So they're a complete offense and can really attack you in all facets of it.
Matt, how important is the line of scrimmage going to be against BYU on both sides?
Oh, I mean, as big as it can be. I think the reality of it is you're playing one of the most veteran and complete O-line and D-lines that we faced this year. And so they're big, they're physical, and really they've done a great job in all the games of winning the line of scrimmage. And we're going to have to be ready to compete in those areas for sure.
It really struck me watching the post-game at Colorado how hard Rocco was taking his personal performance and stuff. How do you find that balance of you want him to have accountability and also, him to continue to believe and all that kind of confidence?
Well, I think that's the great thing about, Rocco, and I think, I would say our all of our leadership here, like, it means the world to us. And, I don't think any of us want to, put our team in a situation where we don't feel like we're doing our best. And I think that's the hard thing about a guy like Rocco. Rocco's given us every opportunity to win every game we played, and that guy puts it on his shoulders, no different than I feel like I put it on my shoulders, and Coach Haycock puts it on his shoulders, and Mouse puts it on his shoulders. You know, you want to have leaders that want to take responsibility, and unfortunately we're probably in a world where I don't know if the leaders want to take the responsibility, but in this building the leaders want to take responsibility and lead from the front. And so I'm way more grateful to have those kind of guys in this football program. It means we're going to work really hard to try to get things fixed.
You've talked so much about detail this year. In the last 2 weeks, I think you've accounted for over half of your penalties this season. How do you go about correcting that during the bye week?
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are things where, you know, a little bit of it is our guys are pressing. You know, I think a little bit of it is guys are, you know, trying to, you know, go make something happen instead of just kind of being, man, one play at a time. And that happens sometimes. And again, I think it goes back to, man, our kids care. I think there's a high-end investment. And, you know, I think those are things that we work really hard at in how we practice. And the only way I really know how to address those things is the detail in which we practice. And, you know, it's really what we've tried to sink our teeth back into is the fundamentals it takes to win football games. And again, we've been probably a hair off in how we've won games the last 2 weeks, and been really working to try to get those things corrected. But, you know, that's the nice thing is they're all correctable. Those are things that we can correct and we can control.
Similar line of question. What have you seen from your team on third down in the last 2 outings? I think just 6 of 28. And how much of correcting that is being better on first and second down?
Yeah, I think that's skewed, though. I think you should go look at the stats on first and second down, right? I think we've actually been probably better on first and second down the last 2 weeks. I think the hard thing is you're going for it, or you're in a lot more four-down situations, I think, the last couple of weeks. So I think it skews those numbers. You know, and we have to be better, right? I mean, I think if you just look at the number in general, and we did obviously during the bye week, we weren't as good, you know, comparable to the first 5 games. And I think it's something we got to do a better job of. You know, some of those are penalties. Some of those are, you know, penalties have kind of hindered us. But, you know, I think that's the thing that we went into last bye week, man, we wanted to be a little bit better on first and second down, and we were. And then, you know, some of those self-inflicted wounds kind of put ourselves in some tougher situations. And like I said, we've had to be in some tougher situations just because we've been trying to be a little bit different on the plus side of the 50 because we had to play a game that's probably a little bit different than what we tried to play. So, yeah, those are all things we got to clean up. We got to be a little bit better for sure, and I think that's a great point. But, yeah, I think globally, I think our discipline and detail has probably got us more than anything.
To piggyback on that, when you're across the 50 with guys trying to do – like, did it feel like you're having to make a decision like you're playing high school football with, like, when you don't have a kicker? Like, you're not playing Big 12 football at that point, to some degree, obviously.
It's certainly a unique challenge, right? So I appreciate the question, and it's unique. But again, and as I told our kids, that is why they call you team, right? This is a team sport. And, you know, the reality of it is we handled it against Arizona. We probably didn't handle it as well as we needed to in those other games. And again, those are things that is a unique challenge to it. And so there's nothing you can do about it other than, man, pick it up. We got to be, those are things that, some of those things are self-inflicted though, like I said, and man, those are things we have to clean up. You know this, covering us as much as you have, is when we're really good, our detail is usually pretty darn good. And when we're not, you know, our detail's a hair off, and those are things we can control. And so there's no excuse. There's no, man, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like, we had every opportunity to make it happen, and we didn't. And so I think getting those things fixed are really important, no matter who's in the kicking game or what situation it is. That is team football. And so it's been a unique challenge, but that's part of it. And I think in some ways we did some really good things. In other ways, man, we needed to be better, and we just weren't. And again, you can put that on me first, and I think it's a trickle-down effect a little bit.
How do you manage the bye week where regrouping, reframing is important, but also you don't want guys to wallow in 2 losses for an extra week to keep the momentum pushing in the same direction or forward?
Well, I think that's where I can say what I want, and I've said this forever, right? I mean, at this point of the season, they're shutting you off. I don't care who you are or where you're at. And that's where the locker room and the leadership and the veteran leadership in that locker room has got to be about what's right. And I mean, we're living in like a reality show now in college athletics, right? It's reality show USA. And if you don't have player-driven leadership, then I just don't know how you have the focus to get through the entirety of the year. And I think that's why I said from the beginning of the season, toughness is not physical toughness. Physical, it's mental toughness. Can you mentally stay together, stay at the task at hand, and keep driving forward? And I think the great thing here is we've had so much of that the last couple years, and man, the great leaders have passed that down to the next group and passed it down to the next group, that it's really rewarding to be somewhere where you can kind of lean back and say, hey, we've been here, we understand what this looks like, how do we keep moving ourselves forward? So, you know, I think you just talk about those things. Those are things you better have talked about, honestly, before the season even started, because I think if you just get to it and say, oh man, we're here, and how are we going to get through it now, then I think you're a big mistake. And those are things I think we try to talk about through, man, the fall. I say this every year, you're going to have adversity, you're going to have tough days. Man, our world here, that's just how we're going to live, and how we respond to it defines who we become. And yeah, those are the crossroad moments, man. How do you respond when it's not going well? How do you pull yourself up and keep moving forward? So I look forward to the challenge. It's what I love about it and what I love about our kids. But you know, you're going to hang your hat on our great leadership in that locker room, and we're really fortunate to have great kids right now.
Coach, what do you see out of Bear Bachmeyer at quarterback?
Yeah, he's really tough. You know, I would just say the first word that comes to my mind is he's just tough. He's gritty. He's tough. Man, I really love his ability to extend plays. I think he does a great job of that. He's physically tough, that he can almost, you know, literally run the football in the A and B gap throughout the football game and have the ability on the next play to make a great throw on the outside 10 yards deep. Like, that's hard to do, you know, when you're physically running the football like that. So really impressive in terms of just his mannerisms, his toughness, and you can tell that football team believes in him. He's got great leadership ability, and, you know, credit to him. He's really done a great job this year.
Hey, Coach, keys to success for your team?
Yeah, I don't think it really changes too much with us. You know, I don't care what game it's been. We got to win the turnover margin, number one. You know, we got to do a great job of creating explosives and eliminating explosive plays. And then, you know, I think from a special team standpoint, we got to be able to do a great job of playing what we're capable of playing in special teams. And so I think those three things are still pillars of our success. And, you know, they'll be pillars in this football game for sure. Yes.
I think you've had 3 true freshmen play 3 games. A couple others I think have played 1 or 2. How do you go about managing whether or not to push them to 4 and 5 to potentially burn a red shirt as you guys are now past the midpoint of your season?
Yeah, always a really good question, and always probably individually unique. You know, I think you're always going to, and I've always said this, I'd rather play our guys too late than too early here. I just would, right? I'd rather be on the conservative side, because I know how critical an extra year can help the majority of our football players, unless we're in a situation where a young man can really get quality reps, and those reps can really count in his development and really springboard him into a great sophomore year. And so, you know, we're in a kind of a unique spot with a bunch of those guys right now, and we'll need some guys that even haven't played yet to be able to step up for us and maybe help us here down the stretch, which we're excited about. So, you know, I really like this freshman class. They've been really competitive. I think the thing that's been really fun for me, and even last week, was just the amount of quality competitive reps to see who is ready to help this team. And but yeah, I think each situation is certainly unique and different, and we try to handle it. As the head coach, I try to handle it with each guy personally and try to make sure we're trying to do what's best for them and do what's best for the football team. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.